And that is it then for the core. Next, add a ceiling by raising the wall by a block. That's these blocks of iron around the edge here. And fill in the area around the lights with top half slabs. Inside, let's head inside here. Go ahead and cover up the water sources with lily pads or carpets or even floating trap doors. Don't use slabs though, so if you used a slab to cover the water source here, the farming villager could stop on top trying to harvest or plant a crop, but he can't actually reach from there, so he'd be stuck on the slab trying to do something that's actually impossible for him. Also, don't use full blocks. I've actually seen the farming villager try to path over or perhaps through through full blocks, even if the block is part of a pillar that extends all the way up to the ceiling. The villager pathing AI still just seems to be a bit wonky. Now I've combined the addition of the ceiling with the covering of the water sources because they're kind of related. The first question to ask is, why have a ceiling at all? If the farm layer above this one has a solid base of full blocks, we've got just all full blocks above there, why not just use that as the ceiling? And the answer to that one is Enderman. Without the slab ceiling, there's actually a 3-high space from the farmland up to the ceiling, and that would allow Enderman teleportation. And when Enderman teleport onto farmland, the farmland reverts to dirt. So without the shorter space, the expansive farmland would eventually become pocked by blocks of unusable dirt, like it's being spoiled by a giant gopher. Now the second question to ask is, why not have a ceiling of full blocks? So we can just have our ceiling be something like this. And the answer to that one is villagers. Villagers are now actually so tall that the combined height of a villager standing on even a lily pad is greater than 2 blocks. So if I had a full block ceiling up here, let's just put a couple more in. If I had a full block ceiling, what would end up happening is the farming villager would try to path over a lily pad, but because he can't fit through this vertical space, he would get stuck on the edge of the lily pad, and he would just stand there. And for that reason, I've also taken care to place each block light so that the block light is not directly over a lily pad or over a water source or adjacent or over a block that's adjacent to a water source. That in that way, the villager always has enough space to path over the lily pad. Okay, so let's see. Let's get out of here. With the farm layer completely enclosed, it's time to go ahead and start it up. So the first thing to do would be to till all of the dirt in here. You can go ahead and remove any temporary lighting in the center here, since hostile mobs can't spawn on farmland. And the next step depends upon what crop you want. For carrots and potatoes, you can go ahead and bring in the farming villager. This just has to be a brown-robed villager, not necessarily a farmer. Can be a shepherd or a fisherman or whatever. Like the hungry villager, the farming villager should start with an empty inventory. Just toss him one or more stacks of whatever you want planted, carrots or potatoes, and you can just walk away. He'll eventually plant the entire area all by himself. You could do that. You could plant it beforehand, before you bring the farmer in here, but hey, he's willing to do the work. Now for wheat and beetroots, seed all of the farmland first, so plant every square in here, and then bring in the farming villager. In that case, you don't have to toss him anything, he'll do the rest. But if you don't seed the whole area, he'll stop planting when he runs out of seeds, and he won't harvest if he has enough wheat or beetroots. At that point, you'd have to wait until he passes into the center, just by pure chance, and toss some food at the hungry villager, which really could take a long time. And that is a completed farm layer. So that's it. It's not actually fully functional until the rooftop is in place, which I'll talk about in just a second. And that's because the center block is receiving too much skylight for the crop to pop out. But the farm layer is complete. Now a couple of quick notes here. First, don't mix crops in the same farm layer. Make sure it's all carrots or all potatoes or all whatever. Villagers only share from their first inventory slot with enough food, so the output would favor one crop anyway. Second, you can use more than one farming villager per farm layer, so you could actually have 2 brown-robed villagers floating around in here, but you probably should not. In the testing I did with this, output increased by as much as a third. However, when I was repeatedly reloading the chunks as part of my testing, I once saw that one farming villager had pushed another into the glass blocks in the middle there of the core. And I think that the glass-encased farming villager was actually able to successfully share food with the hungry villager, because he would have thrown food and it would have been levitated up through the glass. So stick with a single farming villager for stability. Now that we have a completed farm layer, additional identical farm layers can be stacked just right on top of it. Here I have 4 layers, 1 for each crop type, but you could have just 1 layer or 10 layers or how many ever you want. And after adding the desired number of farm layers, put on the rooftop. The rooftop primarily consists of 2 layers of full blocks with a layer of bottom half slabs over the top. And these 3 layers are highly recommended because they protect the farming villager in the top layer from lightning. If lightning strikes the roof, right here, it causes damage to entities 1, 2, 3 blocks down. And it may actually look like there's an extra block of space in here, but remember that when a villager is standing on a lily pad, he's more than 2 blocks high. So the villager's head, the head of the farming villager, can actually just barely peek into this block here. So 1 block lower and a badly timed lightning strike could still turn a hapless farming villager into a witch. All right, in the middle of the rooftop, is a 7x7 square canopy of bottom half slabs, raised by an additional 2 blocks. That little pillar of solid blocks is directly over the top half slab that's over the head of our hungry villager on the top farm layer there. Now, if you downloaded my early release of this tutorial world, you might notice that I've shaved off a layer here. This used to be up 3 blocks instead of 2. And that's because I had previously raised the canopy by 1 block higher than was strictly necessary. Now the canopy is going to be protecting the hungry villager in the top layer from lightning. It is slightly off center because the middle block of the canopy is directly over the hungry villager, and the hungry villager is slightly off center. And now if you're really familiar with lightning mechanics, you know that the canopy actually only needs to be a 6x6 square. I've made it a 7x7 square so that you don't have to worry about the orientation of the farm. The canopy is a bit ugly though, so I'm going to pretty it up a bit by filling in the area a little. This is purely cosmetic, so if you want to save some blocks and some time, you could just skip it. And likewise, you could actually skip adding the foundation, which is just a layer of full blocks with a layer of top half slabs under that. Also purely cosmetic, allowing the bottom edge of the build to stylistically match the top edge. Just make sure that the drop chute here remains open. It's got to be all the way down. Alright, now you can hook up any kind of item storage or item transportation that you want to the drop chute, and I guess that's it. Here again is the completed build. This is identical to the one that was demoed at the beginning, sans the glowing effect for the villagers, and that is all for this video. I know it's been long, so if you're still watching, thanks for sticking it out. And a big thanks to UnityBit for the initial design of this build, one that I found so useful in so many worlds. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave a note in the comments, and thanks for watching.